Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. I got some very important information to share with you today. Now, haven't you noticed how suddenly it's occurred to people that they need to take the threat of nuclear war seriously? It's become very trendy to talk about. Everybody's vlogging about it. Everybody's sharing their insights on how to survive nuclear fallout and all the rest. The signs are everywhere. Okay, we said that this would happen. We said that eventually it would reach a critical mass in consciousness, and that is coming, and it's coming quick. Now, the government is preparing. They're putting it right in our faces. They are preparing, but you don't want to spook people. That's what people need to realize. If the government came out today and said everybody needs to prepare for nuclear war, guess what? Everybody drains their bank accounts, the markets go to zero, and things get bad way too fast. People will panic. So they have to massage it into our mindsets and precondition us. It's called the mere exposure effect. So if you simply, the more you expose somebody to an idea, the faster they're going to acquiesce when the real warning sounds over the sirens, okay? Over the airwaves, I should say. This is a sign that's on the side of a bus. The Department of Homeland Security, in the thick of a recession, decided to pay money to put this not only on a bus, and what does it say? Do you know what to do in a radiation emergency? Get inside, stay tuned. It's always in threes. It's like stop, drop, and roll. It's the only way people are going to remember these things. It seems dumbed down, but it actually makes sense from a psychological point because you know people are not going to remember much more than that. So if they can get people inside, far away from the entrances and yada, 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 the very simple, dumbed down information they provide, it's going to minimize the casualties that they have to deal with after the fact. We know the government is preparing bunkers. We know that they are stockpiling medications, radiation medications. This is all public knowledge. We know that they're buying potassium iodide. We know that the governments of Europe are doing the exact same thing. Okay, we've been ridiculed for months talking about this. Now it's becoming surprisingly trendy. Here's another one from the subway. Decontamination for yourself and others. Since when have we had a radiation emergency on this continent ever? Okay, I don't even think they had this stuff during the Cold War. Maybe they did. But you would think with all of the other potential disaster scenarios that are unfolding right now, that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security, if they didn't think that this was more than likely to happen, they wouldn't invest their money in it. It's all about priming the population. They know they're not going to be able to educate everybody in time, but if they can educate every 10th person, then that person will know what to do, and then they can tell the other person type thing. This is on a billboard, okay? What to do in a radiation emergency. Get inside, stay tuned. I can tell you right now, you ain't going to be tuned to much because the electronics are not going to work if there's an EMP, okay? What do we got here? On the back of a bus, September is National Emergency Preparedness Month. Not just one bus, but 2 buses. This is on all the buses. This is in New Jersey. This is the actual PDF. And the get inside, stay tuned. This goes into a little bit more depth, okay? An 18-page improvised nuclear device and productive action guide, how to stay safe and help others in the event of a nuclear emergency, nuclear safety. This is all brand new stuff. Now they're saying right here, why Ventura County? Why now? I don't know. Maybe because we're on the brink of nuclear war? Nah. There is no known immediate threat to Ventura County or any other county in the U.S. They have to put that first. I know I'm starting to sound like Woody Harrelson on 2012, but I hate to say that's probably all going to make sense soon. However, nuclear safety is one of the 15 national emergency preparedness planning scenarios. Oh, I didn't know that. They said, but isn't the Cold War over? Many baby boomers and older adults tend to think of nuclear explosions in the context of World War II or the Cold War. For Generation Y, X, and Millennials, nuclear explosions are sensational events seen only on television shows such as 24, I didn't know it was on 24, and films like Independence Day. Independence Day? I guess we did use nukes on Independence Day. The fact of the matter is, we don't spend much time thinking about nuclear explosions. No, we don't. Unless you're watching Canadian Prepper 24/7. However, from a public health and emergency perspective, it is critical that we as a community are prepared for the worst. And it goes on to provide a bit more instructions here. Really, simple, universal icons and symbols because, they know not everybody speaks really good English. So they have to make it universally recognizable and understandable. What if I have pets? What if I have animals, kids, that sort of thing, taking safety measures? Look, guys, it's time to stock it to the rafters. That should go without saying. This is from Russia. Russia has a culture of preparedness. Everybody in Russia, they know where their bunkers are. They have stockpiles of food. They're still in a Cold War mentality there because they know, at least in their minds, because of history, that thing called history, they're used to being invaded, okay? Operation Barbarossa, anybody? They still remember that. So their population knows what to do in case of a nuclear disaster. In fact, they have more protections in place for their population than we do here. A lot more than get inside, and stay tuned. This, as you all know, is talking about how the HHS has purchased $290 million worth of medications for radiological and nuclear emergencies. More specifically, the drug that they've purchased is called Nplate, and it's used to deal with acute radiation sickness. And I'm getting emails from people all around saying that there are shortages now for radiation-related medication, one of which is albumin. This guy messaged me the other day talking about how they were doing a mass decontamination event drill at the major hospital in Milwaukee, where he worked as an RN. And he says, today I received an email that there is a nationwide albumin shortage. Albumin is used to replace blood volume loss after traumatic injury or severe burns. It's not unusual to have shortages of things, but the timing of this shortage seems concerning. And I'm also getting emails with respect to Nplate shortages because the government is buying it all. Just like the government is buying all the Thyrosafe and the potassium iodide. Guys, they're clearly taking this threat very seriously. They know that we are so close to the brink. We know that the maximalist positions of Kiev and Moscow are not going to allow for any sort of negotiation, any sort of peaceful negotiation, unless one side gives. Biden just committed yet another. It seems every other day he's committing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of weapons to Ukraine. And a lot of people are saying that these weapons that the U.S. is depleting out of its stockpiles, they're going to cost like 3 or 4 times as much to replace. So it's really, you got to take these numbers of billions because it costs a lot more to make these things now because the price of steel is high, the price of aluminum is high, the price of gas, the price of oil, everything is sky high and it's only going higher. My friends, we're at DEFCON 2 and you need to take this threat very, very seriously. I got another message from a student, and I don't know if this guy's pulling my leg. I don't think so because he's been a long-time viewer. I know that because he made reference to an All-American Prepper funny that I did in a video, has to be 5 years ago now. But he sent me some information the other day about his medical training program was training him to learn how to deal with mass casualty radiation events. And he sent me this message just an hour after that email that he sent, and I had already made the video. But he says, an hour after I sent this email, HOSA, which is an abbreviation for the name of this agency that trains students, had all healthcare students go to a mandatory meeting. This meeting was to discuss FEMA nuclear preparation planning and what the CERT committee of HOSA would do to help in case of a mass casualty nuclear event, a mandatory meeting. Now, he says that this type of training is out of the ordinary based on some of the feedback he's got from people who've taken the course in the past. Again, it's anecdotal. This next part made me sort of question things a bit. Most of the members of the CERT committee have been equipping themselves with gas masks, Thyrosafe, hazmat suits, and Geiger counters. Then we were told to practice more of our skills like treating radiation burns using plastic sheeting and hazmat equipment. I don't know what happened, but I was told that one of the healthcare teachers knew about the threat of nuclear Armageddon and started crying in the middle of class and saying that we're all going to die. That's where I'm kind of like, okay, is this for real? But I would believe it because just yesterday, AOC was lambasted by a couple students who were very, very emotional and passionate and very concerned about the threat of nuclear war. And they were chastising her for supporting the war. Okay? So people are starting to get emotional about this stuff. I don't think it's too long before you start to see some sort of movement emerging because people are starting to get very concerned. Because guys, I'm telling you, we are getting very close. Right now, they've evacuated the city of Kherson of people. Belarus and Russia are working on getting 120,000 troops in the southern, the border between Belarus and Ukraine. Now, Belarus is saying we're just taking a defensive posture, but you cannot take anything either side says at face value at this point because it's likely misdirection, or at least they're trying to, okay? So, according to an exiled Belarusian civil servant, or he was a politician there. I can't remember his exact name. I have the information somewhere, but he says that Belarus is going to do some kind of attack in... He's a former culture minister, Pavel Litushka, who was a former culture minister of Belarus. He claims that they're going to do the attack in March. I can't see that happening because the ground gets muddy at that time. And they call it, General Mud. And that's going to make any sort of offensive almost impossible. And they're going to be rolling down the highway the same way they were in March this year. So for them to do it in spring, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Unless they're talking late spring, maybe when things dry up a bit. But yeah, this war is getting out of control. They're sending more weapons. They're sending more air defense systems. The Russians are giving some very, very stark warnings right now. Putin just issued a warning today that we are approaching the brink, that we are on the brink of chaos, on the brink of all-out nuclear war. So people need to, I know this is a sensational topic, and it seems so surreal to talk about, but it gets real, real fast. Okay? There is reports that the Russian equivalent of Air Force One has been up in the air. The Russian Air Force Ilyushin 2 airborne. It's an airborne, in case of nuclear war emergency. This is from flightradar.com, commonly known as the Doomsday Plane, has been up in the air. This is not out of the ordinary, especially in the last few months, but just another data point for your consideration. What else do we got going on here? This is the situation on the front lines right now. It's pretty hot. Like I say, they're evacuating Kherson, which is down here in this region. That's where they're thinking that the Ukrainians are going to make a major push and that Kherson is going to turn into the next Mariupol. The Russians have evacuated their citizens. They haven't withdrawn militarily. They're preparing to engage them at this point, and you can see that they're just lighting it up. The Russians are just lighting up the front lines all around this ring, this cauldron, if you want to call it that. It's getting lit up. This is a more detailed view on the ground. I'm not going to go into great depth about this, but because the minutia is not really concerning. This is a little levity here. So Elon Musk, you know that old saying, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, or maybe it's don't bite the hand that feeds. That's a great example of this. The Ukrainian ambassador, when Musk proposed a peace deal, which was basically the equivalent of the Misc agreement, which was an agreement that was made a while back for Ukraine and Russia to have some sort of peace deal. And it was basically obviously refuted by at least by the Ukrainian side. And they told him basically to F off. And he just said, well, we're pulling Starlink and we're just following our recommendation. So Starlink has been integral for the Ukrainian communications network. In fact, some people said it was a game changer in the conflict and allowed them to, because communication and intelligence is half the battle. If you can't communicate in a war zone, you're pretty much screwed. So they pulled it now because there's a big bill. I think it's like $100 million. And of course, the Daddy Pentagon is going to pay for it. That means you're going to pay for it. So this is not looking good, my friends. It is not looking good. On the monetary front and in terms of making preparations and inflation, the best thing you can do with your money right now, in my personal opinion, is getting your stockpiles topped off. Getting things that are non-perishable that you know you're going to use years from now. Right now, the US dollar, not a lot of people think about this, but right now the US dollar is riding high at like $1.40. It's $1.40 Canadian for every US dollar. Earlier in the year, it was about $1.20. Okay, we're almost approaching the March 2020 levels. And what that really means is that when an American goes and they see the inflated price of food, right? The price of food, the sticker tag has gone up. That, loaf of bread that was once $2 is $3 or something like that. You got to understand that the purchasing power of your dollar has also went up because it's the global reserve currency, not because the US dollar is great or anything like that. It's just because in times of great crisis, everybody wants dollars. So the dollar value goes up because there's less of them, okay? Which is why, who knows, the Fed might start printing more any day now. But what that means is that not only is the inflated sticker price, and not only are most of the food products bound by shrinkflation, but that also means that you're actually paying more than the dollar amount showing there because your dollar is actually worth more. So if you were to take that same dollar and come to Canada, you would get a lot more for it. So you're actually paying much more. That's not really factored into the CPI. Once they go ahead with this price cap, and Russia, who hasn't really bluffed so far, decides that they're not going to sell oil to the G7 countries, and then you're going to have this whole oil laundering, racketeering thing going on. And it looks like my phone's going to die again because I haven't properly timed this, but you're going to see the price of oil go through the frickin' roof, okay? And it's the insidious nature of inflation and this higher valuation of the dollar, which is going to break a lot of people. Remember, they don't want people pulling their money out of the banks. They don't want you tanking the stock market. We know that next year it's likely we're going to see depressionary levels in the economy. The food prices are going to go sky high because the price of fertilizer is going to go up because of this Russian thing. Russia and Belarus produce a huge portion of the world's fertilizer. And Russia is now even considering backing out of the grain deal, so the price of grain is going to rise. Natural gas is integral to producing fertilizer in Europe, so Europe is not going to grow as much food. Things are just falling apart, my friends, and you need to prepare for it. We have Iran, which is on the brink of being turned into Libya. If that happens, that's one less oil country that's going to be able to export. If it flares up into a civil war or a broader war, you have the Saudi Arabian situation going on, and everything is just happening all at once. So your preps will never be in vain. One last message here that I received from somebody in the UK who is involved in training Ukrainian troops. Apparently he's saying that every 2 or 4 weeks, a new batch of Ukrainian soldiers arrive, they train them up, and he says it's very sad and unfortunately not surprising that the kill rate is around 30 to 40% from each unit that they send back within 4 weeks of deployment. This war is bloodier than most people realize. We are closer to SHTF than most people realize, which is why they're telling us. It's right there. It's right in our faces. The likelihood of an incident like this in normal times is slim to none. So why on earth would they be putting it in our faces and like that? It's getting very unnerving talking about this as it approaches, but you guys stay safe.